Dear Lord, bless this council and give us wisdom to discharge our duties with fairness and dedication. May we make decisions which reflect the needs of the people we represent, so that the outcomes make a real difference to the quality of their daily lives. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the council. For the benefit of those who are vulnerable or otherwise anxious about becoming ill, we ask that you continue to respect the decision for those people to continue wearing a face mask. If you're wearing a mask, do please remove it though when you speak. Don't hold the microphone by the stem, as they are very expensive to repair. And for the benefit of those watching the live stream, please use your microphone every time you speak, including when participating in a recorded vote. You may find it easier to be seated whilst using your microphone. I do propose to take a 20-minute break at approximately 12:30, if we haven't finished by then, to allow those of you who wish to take refreshment, and obviously that may vary by 5 or 10 minutes either way, depending on where we are on our agenda item. Now, before I start the meeting officially, let me just say that I've got the usual orchestra as I came in, and through prayers, the usual symphonium of people's computers and phones. Please switch them off. If you don't know how to switch them off, ask somebody who's sitting next to you, because it is very irritating and bordering on disrespectful, I think, when people are speaking. So if you could just make sure you do that, I'd be really grateful. Thank you. And as I say, just before we go into apologies, I'm going to invite Alan to just say a few words about Councillor Derek Woodvine, who was a long-serving Labour councillor of the County Council. Alan.
Well, thanks, Mr. Speaker. I don't know how many will recollect Derek, but if we were at a council meeting years ago in the auditorium that is below here, everyone would be listening to Derek and throughout the day as a major stalwart of the council and Shropshire County Council, as it was then, and its forerunner. So I'm proud now to be able to give tribute to his life briefly. And he died on Tuesday evening after a short illness at home with his wife Frida, who had been his wife for 65 years. He himself had recently celebrated his 90th birthday. At all levels, in Castlefields, in Shropshire, and the region, he stood up steadfastly to protect and promote the interests of residents and the interests of socialism in Shropshire and beyond. I know his legacy because I took over from him in Castlefields in 2005, and it is massive, both locally and wider. He was, of course, for a time the portfolio holder for social care. He was highly intelligent, as people here in Newham will be well aware, extremely kind, incredibly committed to his cause, and he did not, though, suffer fools gladly, as some here will know from hearing his tongue and his speeches over the years. A great orator, and other than his council work, he was a full-time official for the AEW Union, and prior to that had been shop steward and convener at Rolls-Royce in Shrewsbury. He was an award-winning allotmenteer, a devoted advocate of folk music, a chorister, a canal boat owner, and a keen cyclist with a fixed-wheel racer, for those who know what that means. I hope, as Speaker, we can have a moment's silence. Derek was a truly awesome person with an awesome life and a massive contribution to Shropshire.
Thank you, Alan. We will observe just a brief moment of silence, if that's all right with councillors. Thank you. Once again, broken up by somebody's computer, though. I know that those thoughts and words are reflected by other councillors in the chamber who knew him. Right, we will crack on with business. Chief Executive will read the apologies for absence.
Apologies have been received from the following councillors: Ed Bird, Andy Boddington, Steve Charnley, Gerald Dakin, Julian Dean, Nat Green, Heather Kidd, Pam Mosley, Tony Parsons, Robert Tyndall, Rob Wilson, Leslie Picton, Richard Huffer, Tracy Huffer. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 2, which is disclosable interests. I'd remind members to disclose any pecuniary and other registrable, non-registrable interests in any matter to be discussed, including interest in their register of interests, and leave the chamber prior to the matter being discussed. Now, before I look around the room, I'm going to say that on the green motion, I will be leaving the room. Claire.
Thank you. I've got a disclosable pecuniary interest in item number 7, so I should be leaving the room. Thank you.
Thank you. Computer, please, somebody turn it off. Thank you. Are there any others? Nope. Okay, move on to item 3, which is the minutes of the last meeting. I move that the minutes of the previous council meeting held on the 11th of May 2023, as circulated with the agenda papers, be signed as a correct record.
I second those minutes.
Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, Mr. The Start, do you need me to stand now? Did you say that at the start? I'm not sure. So, and that's a
no. If you want to stand, Roger, stand. The reason we remain sitting, which is not how things are normally done, is because the stems, which are incredibly expensive to repair, as I said earlier, don't reach up far enough for your average sized person. So
why I raise my hand, Mr. Chairman, is that I note the minutes, if I can call them minutes, only actually record the decisions that are made. They are not minutes to my mind. It has changed over the time, and this is the worst case that I've seen, that the minutes is a misnomer for what it states. I note the minutes in the exempt section are different to these. They note comments from members, but these do not. Can I ask you to look at that and note that the general comments that are made by members during the debates are summed up in some way in future minutes, because that is the official record of the meeting.
I will have that discussion with Tim Collard and Andy Begley post this meeting, Roger. Although this section technically is for noting changes, inaccuracies in the minutes, as opposed to dissatisfaction that you haven't got the equivalent of Tolstoy's War and Peace in front of you.
They are inaccurate in my comment, Chairman.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Item 4 is announcements. To receive such communications as myself and the Vice Chair have been doing. So I will refer members to the list of official engagements carried out by the said 2, which have been circulated by email. I also wish to, at this juncture, congratulate all of those who've been awarded honours in the 2023 birthday honours list, and confirm that I have written to them all to thank them. Some of you may know I sit on the honours panel, so I am very aware of how deserving a number of these people are. And in particular, although she's not here, I want to say well done to Heather for being recognised for all the long and hard work that she's done for the people in her division and in general, the people of the county. Okay, so we will move on therefore to item 5. And in accordance with Procedure Rule 14, we'll now deal with questions from members of the public. Obviously, in accordance with the revised procedure rules, the Assistant Director of Legal and Democratic Services will read out the public questions received from members of the public who are not present, and the relevant portfolio holder will respond to those questions. And the first question we have is from Barry Green. Tim.
Thank you. The question. The Council declared a climate emergency in May of 2019, stating a pressing need to be net zero, both as a council and within the wider county by 2030. The Council advised, in a response to a recent FOI, that no planning and budgeting has taken place for a third 4 years into the corrective period of the council declared emergency. With no council plans or costings in place more than 4 years, the emergency clearly isn't anywhere near as important or pressing as the emergency status would suggest or specifically warrant. I feel compelled to ask, why has the council made no structured and costed planning around a declared emergency situation, a third into a corrective action period? I also ask, is there any reason why the council should not immediately rescind their emergency declaration due to their own inactivity? And as an elected body, it is also something that has bypassed the election process with no involvement of the voters of Shropshire. Finally, are there any good reasons why the council should not remove all references to the emergency on the council website?
Thank you. Councillor Nellins as the portfolio holder for climate change, environment and transport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gregg, for your question. Climate change is an extremely complex challenge which will affect every council service, member of staff, Shropshire business and local community. The UK government has adopted legally binding targets for carbon reduction. In this context, Shropshire Council is continuing to plan and invest in measures to improve its own carbon performance, and you can see that in the carbon monitoring report dated the 6th of June, as well as actively supporting wider community efforts to improve Shropshire's carbon performance. Many of these measures will also help Shropshire Council reduce costs. Accurate data and comprehensive monitoring and reporting systems for carbon performance are still being developed nationally and locally. Just because Shropshire Council does not hold the specific information which Mr. Gregg previously requested in his Freedom of Information request, it does not follow, as he contends, that Shropshire Council is inactive or that no planning and budgeting has taken place in the first third or 4 years of the corrective period of the Council declaring an emergency. We are focusing on actions that we know will save carbon and costs to this council, such as installation of solar PV on many of our building stock. These have saved the council hundreds of thousands of pounds since they started being installed in 2012. For further details of this good news story, please see the Shropshire website on www.shropshire.gov, Shropshire Climate Action Emergency. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the next question, I believe the questioner is here, Mr. Frank Smallman. I believe he's here with a colleague from work, Laura. If you'd like to read your question.
We are representatives from Condover and St Edward's Primary School Worship Committee and are promoting children's voice within our local committee. We would like to ask the question, how are you promoting children's voice within Shropshire Council?
Thank you very much. Well done, both of you. Kirsty.
Good morning, Laura and Frank, and welcome. Thank you for your question. I'm the portfolio holder, as you know, for children and education, so I'll provide an answer. A range of activities capture children's voices. For example, the Health, Wellbeing and Prevention Directorate are currently designing a survey to capture young people's views on their health and wellbeing needs. This will be a survey which forms part of our Joint Strategic Needs Assessment, referred to as the JSNA. A further example of such activity is involving young people in workshops to shape the SEND provision across Shropshire. The Youth Support Team carried out a survey of secondary age students last year to gain young people's views on a range of topics, including local activities and facilities. The Youth Support Team are also due to appoint a participation officer who will work with 13 to 19-year-olds to capture their views and use this to shape future offers. The virtual school has a responsibility for education provision of those children that are looked after, and children with a social worker. They also have a participation officer who will seek the views of young people to provide activities to meet their interests. Children who are looked after and children with an educational healthcare plan, known as an EHCP, will have review meetings for their EHCP or PEP, their personal education plan. The child's views must be captured for both of these documents. Often children will attend for all of the review meeting or some of the review meeting, but others prefer to write, draw, or talk to a trusted person. We have involved young people on some of the appointment panels for staff who work closely with children, especially those that are in care. We also have a Children in Care Council, known as the CICC. At a school level, we encourage all schools to have a student stakeholder group, such as a student council or an eco group, and we promote the use of pupil panels when pupils are interviewing for a new head teacher. We previously had a youth parliament, and we have recently started to investigate how we can reintroduce something similar here. In children's social care, each child is asked for their views for every child protection conference, however they want to give them, and they are offered the opportunity to attend if they are a certain age. Every child looked after completes their views for the CLA reviews, either on a form or on a Mind of My Own app that we have to engage children in sharing their views, contributing to their plans. We had a young person's advisory board acting to advise a team when we developed Carebrin, our recently opened children's home, promoting independence. We listened to young people, and this year two young people have shared their views to come to senior leadership meetings to talk to us in a format service development. We have examples of practice changing this as a result of those meetings. We have a Children in Care Council who do pieces of work sharing their views about issues that affect them. We have a Care Leavers Forum that works with care leavers to get their lived experience and informed developments to our 18+ group. We are developing a participation strategy to develop this further. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, and again, well done, both of you. You'll feel free to stay till the end of the meeting if you want. Keeps you out of school. Okay, so we'll move on to our next question, which is from a Mr. Christopher Ford. Is Mr. Ford here? Mr. Ford.
Hello there. Looking at the Shropshire Cycling and Walking 10-year plan, I was surprised by the lack of information about those who would be unable to use the plan. I'm referring to people with disabilities. From a personal point of view, as the blue badge holder, it is essential for me to be able to travel independently by car and within the towns identified within the 10-year plan. Reducing car parking spaces, changing or moving them currently, changing or moving them may well have a negative impact upon me accessing these things. I currently do, for example, shopping, leisure activities, visiting friends and family, as well as taking part in hobbies. Has any form of exploration, investigation been completed by the council to identify the needs of people with disabilities to travel to, from and within Shropshire, such as completing a cost-benefit analysis or speaking with disabled groups or individuals? How many blue badge parking spaces will be increased or reduced within the Oswestry over the 10-year plan? What are the number of council car parking spaces available both to the general public and to people with blue badge in each of the areas within the walking zones across Shropshire? The total numbers that will be increased or reduced over the 10-year plan. Have Shropshire Council plans to increase, decrease or change the bus services over the 10 years within the walking and cycling zones? And if so, what are they? And the last question, can Shropshire Council confirm any plans or suggestions to reduce people's freedoms to travel by car, including whether by use of cameras to issue fines or roadblock being blocks off, reducing in one form or another people's right to travel that are not currently restricted or reduced? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Councillor Ian Nellins again to respond.
Thank you for your 6 questions, Mr. Ford. Not specifically, however, all LC WIP schemes will seek to be compliant with Department of Transport's local transport note, known as the LTN 120, which puts planning for pedestrians and cyclists with disabilities at the heart of all schemes. People with disabilities and mobility issues are as important users of the transport system as everyone else, which is why we consulted with local disability groups during the development of the plan. We understand that people in this group may not be able to walk and cycle, and the aim of this plan is not to remove access by car for anyone who needs it. Some of the proposals, such as tackling pavement parking, dealing with uneven pavement surfaces and widening footways, will benefit those who use mobility aids, such as wheelchairs and walking frames, even over short distances. All schemes will have a disability assessment integrated as part of the detailed design and feasibility studies, which will happen at a later date. On your second question about how many parking spaces in general will be increased or reduced, including curbside parking in Oswestry over the 10-year plan, the LCWIP is a high-level document which and specific details such as loss of parking spaces depends on what type of scheme is put in place. Stakeholder engagement and public engagement will be carried out further down the line when schemes are at a more advanced stage of development, and details including loss or gain of parking spaces will be made available at that time. How many blue badge parking spaces will increase or reduce in Oswestry over the 10-year plan, and also in conjunction with that, what are the number of council car parking spaces available both to the general public and to people with blue badges? As the consultation has recently closed and is presently being assessed, it's too early to give an accurate response on the impact of parking spaces over that 10-year period. As such, no decisions have yet been made on any of the potential projects. That said, the need for sufficient blue badge parking spaces will, of course, be carefully considered. On the question E, have Shropshire Council plans to increase, decrease or change the bus service? Shropshire Council has recently submitted 2 significant bids to transform public transport across the county through its bus service improvement plan and enhanced bus partnership with bus operators. Whilst initial funding submissions have been unsuccessful at this time, we have continued dialogue with the Department of Transport to ensure we are in the best possible position to attract the required funding for the county to improve public transport services. The initial bus service improvement plan can be found on the Council's website and will be updated regularly. And finally, can Shropshire Council confirm any plans or suggestions to reduce people's freedoms to travel by car, including whether to use the use of cameras, to issue fines or to block roads? The LCWIP is about giving people a genuine choice between using their car, walking, wheeling or cycling. So people who may want to walk or cycle but currently feel like the car is their only option for confidence and safety reasons will be able to do so. Rather than diminish access, we hope to increase the range of journeys that people can make without requiring a car, which is particularly important for people who do not or cannot drive and during the cost of living crisis when the cost of fuel is high. We're also introducing school streets in Shropshire, which will restrict car access to specific streets outside of schools on safety grounds. This is to give children the freedom to get to school without congested school entrances and improve the air quality around the school sites. Obviously, blue badge holders will still be able to access those areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the next question is from the Reverend Paul Cawthorne. Nope.
His question is this. The risk assessments of the proposed North West Road scheme seem culpably inadequate. Financial, ecological and traffic flow downsides seem systematically underestimated. The environmental assessment wasn't even available to the public at the time of the WSP consultation. Additional costs are clearly externalised or put off, such as risk insurance for remediation or unintended disruption of town water supply by damage from roadworks, new work needed on the Uffington roundabout to prevent gridlock at Battlefield roundabout for commuters from Hadnall, increased cost of materials necessitating a more realistic cost-benefit calculation. It seems obvious that councillors are being corralled into approving this scheme to free up land for housing rather than for the stated objectives of the road. Is the level of risk being proposed misfeasance in public office?
And Councillor Richard Marshall, who is the Portfolio for Highways and Regulatory Services, will provide a reply.
I can confirm that the range of risk and mitigation assessments undertaken in support of the North West Relief Road fully comply with those requirements set by the Department for Transport, and also the wide range of statutory consultees engaged through the planning application process. The results of these are in the public domain, including the full supplementary environmental information documentation submitted in February of this year. This addressed the key remaining issues raised through the consultation, and work to conclude this process with consultees is now nearing completion. The project continues to monitor forecast costs around risk mitigation across a number of carefully monitored scenarios, and these costs, along with the final construction cost, will be brought back for the consideration of full council as part of the full business case due at the end of this year. It is important to note at this time that planning permission and any subsequent decision to move to road construction following the full business case are related but entirely separate processes.
Thank you. Our next question is from Jamie Russell, and I believe, Tim, you are going to read this one as well.
I am. The question is this. On the 28th of June 2023, the Committee on Climate Change, the government's climate advisor, published a report saying that the UK had gone backwards on progress towards net zero in the last 12 months, and that urgent action was needed to get back on track. In his covering letter, the committee chairman, Conservative peer Lord Debnam, writes, "Our children will not forgive us if we leave them a world of withering heat and devastating storms, where sea level rises and extreme temperatures force millions to move because their countries are no longer habitable. None of us can avoid our responsibility. Delay is not an option." The report recommends a national review of current and future road building projects to assess their consistency with the government's environmental goals. This is to ensure that decisions do not lock in unsustainable levels of traffic growth. Schemes should only be taken forward if they meaningfully support cost-effective delivery of net zero and climate adaptation. What are the implications of such a review for the proposed North West Relief Road, given that it will result in adding more CO2 into the atmosphere under any meaningful timescale?
Thank you. Councillor Nellings again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Russell, for your question. The Shrewsbury North West Relief Road received programme entry under the Department for Transport Large Local Major Programme in 2019 and is now in delivery. As such, the Council has not been made aware of any suggestion that future government infrastructure investment decisions would be applied retrospectively to such projects. That notwithstanding, the proposal to deliver the North West Relief Road has been carefully reviewed in light of the Council's stated carbon position. A rigorous carbon modelling and forecasting exercise, both for the construction phase and the future lifetime use of the scheme, has been undertaken and is published on the Council's website. Further to list the methodology and conclusions within the report have been independently reviewed by an academic specialist at Birmingham University, and this is also available through the website, which I know I've previously sent to Mr. Russell. The findings of this report highlight a net carbon legacy for the scheme in the region of 27,000 tonnes over the lifetime of the scheme. This impact has already been considerably mitigated through informed design choices of build materials and methodology, and the acknowledgement of net zero savings on the highway network more widely within Shrewsbury. Work continues to develop approaches that will deliver further reductions in the project carbon legacy, potentially to net zero over the lifetime of the road, and a funding commitment has already been made within the project budget. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, a question from Mike Streetley. Again, Tim will be reading it. Tim.
Thank you. His question is this. On the 23rd of June 2023, DEFRA told Shrewsbury and Atcham's MP that in relation to the proposed North West Relief Road, the Environment Agency has outstanding concerns about issues to do with protecting the water resources aquifer from which Severn Trent Water draws water supplies for the town of Shrewsbury. The Environment Agency does not consider that the information supplied by the Council and its representatives to demonstrate an appropriate level of assessment and risk mitigation. If Shropshire Council builds the road against the Environment Agency's advice, will it be liable for the cost of remediation replacement of the water supplies if they become contaminated by a spill on the road? And how would Shropshire Council underwrite such a risk?
Thank you. And Councillor Richard Marshall, once again, will respond.
Thank you for the question. As applicant for the North West Relief Road, Shropshire Council continues its ongoing and positive engagement with all statutory consultees. This includes the Environment Agency, where discussions continue around the appropriate risk and mitigation plans for the road during construction and in future use. As a responsible scheme promoter, appropriate controls and risk management plans will continue to be refined by the Council as part of the current planning process, with the input of the Environment Agency and other agencies in order to provide appropriate levels of reassurance to all parties.
Thank you. Okay, that ends the public question section. When I said earlier, you can feel free to stay till the end. You don't actually have to. It's not detention. So if you want to leave, you can leave. And thank you very much again. Okay. Item 6 is the financial outturn 22-23. So I'm going to invite Councillor Gwilym Butler, the portfolio holder for Finance and Corporate Resources, to present the report and move the report and recommendations be received and agreed. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chairman. On introducing the report, I think it's important that we set the scene on this historical report. The budget for 22-23 was approved in the first half of February 22. We predicted inflation at 3%. We had no knowledge of the Ukraine war or the surge in fuel prices resulting in 12% inflation. We have also incurred and consumed a far higher pay award, deservedly for our staff, than was envisaged, and come through a cost of living crisis over the winter, supporting our residents in Shropshire. Compounded with this, we've had to deal with extreme pressures in children's services and adult social care. It is also noted how unhelpful when partners renege on their financial responsibilities to the council and ultimately the people of Shropshire we serve. I do not think they realise the impact it has on their demand by not supporting us, and the bigger impact it can have on the overall picture and for people living their best lives in Shropshire. Taking all this into account, to come in at the current overspend is no mean feat, and it could have been an awful lot worse. Thanks must go to our staff committed to this organisation and the endorsement of the Shropshire Plan. And this is starting to show how our investment in the staff around getting it right and getting leadership right, we are already starting to see green shoots on how the organisation is changing and rising to the future challenge. Although the overspend of 8 million has had an impact on our general fund, the surplus of over 4 million in the collection account will help offset some of that in this financial year. I'm also content that our forecast to put reserves back up to sustainable levels are a crucial part of our plan of the sustainability of this council. Furthermore, our sincere thanks must go to the finance team as we completed our outturn statement of accounts within the new government guidelines before the 31st of May, and there are many councils across the country who have failed. We know where we are starting from in this year, where many councils still don't. This shows how we are delivering a healthy organisation. To conclude, Chairman, we have seen the fact that inflation is our enemy, and with that being at a 40-year high not predicted, and the unprecedented turmoil in the world which has had severe effect on all government services, if inflation had been how we projected back in early February 22, on Treasury guidance, I would estimate we would be showing a surplus this last year and already rebuilding our reserves. Last summer, I stated we were heading for a storm. We did have that storm, but we have come through. The last year was the start of the beginning of us transforming this council to a modern, efficient, sustainable council fit for the future generations in Shropshire. I move the recommendations A to J. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I understand that was going to be seconded by Leslie Picton, but as she's unwell, who will now be seconding that?
Councillor Ian Nellens, I'll second and reserve my right.
Thank you, Ian. Right. Now, I have been handed a piece of paper with from Roger Evans with some proposed amendments, which was received at 10, so literally just at the knife edge. Roger, I assume you wish to speak to your amendments?
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman. And it has been circulated to all members here today, so it should be on their computers. But it is to do with the recommendations which are on page 16 of today's papers, and it is in effect to delete the first 4 items under 3.1 and insert 5 items as per the paper that's been sent around, and then renumbering, relettering the items below that. It is being seconded by Councillor Vasmer, but yeah, I rise now to actually speak on behalf of it. I think the amendment speaks for itself. Dismay at the performance in recent years has reduced the level, or our dismay at the performance in recent years has reduced the level of the general fund. The amount of money wasted on projects, the money not involved in investing in projects which would invest to save and provide an income to the council, is not supported, I would have thought, by all members here today. The failure of the Cabinet to deliver the budget it proposed to the council back last February, and it was the Cabinet's budget which the council took on board. To blame this failure on events is only half the story. Not making the services, it's not making the savings it said they would make, is an important part and needs to be looked at more thoroughly. This includes why nearly £2 million of savings has to be transferred to this current year. The savings of 51 million, or as it may now be £53 million, is unprecedented. Council needs to be regularly informed of the progress, and I note the peer review comments included in the report at 2.4 on page 14. I move the amendment as it is, and I also, as part of this speech, actually join with the portfolio holder in congratulating staff for producing this outturned report. I understand many councils are still waiting, so it is good that our staff have produced it, but I think the first part of this report to council does not tell the story that many of us believe should be there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Now, that's, you said, was being seconded by Councillor David Vasmer. Do you want to speak now?
I reserve my right. Thank you, Chair.
Williams.
My, Roger. Well, I'm absolutely astounded by the semantics of actually changing these recommendations, because putting in words like dismay and everything like that, I actually collate the finances from around this organisation. Now, as I put in my introduction, we've had a horrendous year of external forces. Inflation, cost of living crisis, and a huge increase in demand on adult and social care. And what you're basically saying, Roger, is that our staff haven't done good enough. That's what you're saying. Well, I can tell you now, on this side of the chamber, we thank them from the bottom of our hearts for the damn good job they've been doing. So if anybody supports this amendment, you are saying our staff are not good enough. I cannot rise to this. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Wild.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, was that the proposer replying to my amendment?
Sorry, that was speaking
Was that the
to your
proposer
amendment.
replying to my amendment, or just speaking?
Well, speaking to it. We're dealing with your amendment now, Roger. So anybody who puts their hand up to speak can, under the words debate, have a say. Councillor Wild.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm really disappointed by this amendment. I think this is historical data, as Willem says, at a time when we were under incredible financial pressure Inflation was running at over 10%. That was not within anybody's mindset when we started all this process. So actually to bring the budget in within 1%, I think is incredibly good, and the staff should be congratulated. So I don't really understand why he's nitpicking. And certainly some of the ways that the figures have been written are, I think, confusing and not particularly clear for the general public. So I think this is just attention-grabbing headlines. Thank you.
Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm surprised to hear Gwilym's response, because I very clearly heard Roger Evans thank the staff for their work. There's not a member in this hall that doesn't understand and appreciate quite how hard staff have to work in this organisation, since you've cut capacity by 40% over 13 years of Tory austerity. I think the issue we have here is with the portfolio's report and with the language you've chosen to use. Surely, in terms of the reputation of this council, we need to have some credibility. We are dangerously close to falling into bankruptcy. This is not the moment to be congratulating yourself and talking about achievements. It's absolutely the moment to talk honestly about the size of the challenge. I know you won't listen to me, but I hope in the report you'll listen to expert third parties, such as the LGA and Grant Thornton's, who tell you in no uncertain terms about precariousness, about jeopardy, and that you have less than half the minimum level of reserves. It would, in fact, be foolish not to admit that this situation is challenging. And to keep words in there, congratulating yourself, will lead to very serious problems of credibility for this council. It's time to be honest and own the mess that you have made.
Okay, in the room. Now, nobody else has indicated. So, Gwilym, you asked for a... Oh, sorry, David, yes. I can't see your hand there. It wasn't up high enough.
Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to respond to the debate and say that I'm not attacking officers. This is not a criticism of officers. I think they've done a superb job in putting together these figures. But the figures are a result of decisions taken by this administration, this financial mismanagement of this council by this administration. The fact that we are in the situation that we are, where we're clearly going to be facing bankruptcy very shortly, is a result of various decisions, and not least the most recent one, to spend money on consultants to advise us as how we make cuts. It's quite extraordinary that we're doing this at the same time as we're making cuts to the pest control service, for example. Our priority should be to save services as best we can and use the officers we have at the moment to make the savings that are needed. This is nitpicking, says Councillor Wilde. Well, nitpicking this is about the financial credibility, the financial survival of this authority, and that is not nitpicking. I agree with Councillor Buckley on that we are close to bankruptcy. We need to talk honestly. I agree very much with that, and I think that the clear way forward is to be more honest. And indeed, this whole scenario reminds me of I don't know if you're aware, but there's going to be an escape room experience in the Darwin Centre starting on the 22nd of July. And it seems to me that we've had a series of situations where councillors, the Tory administration, have been caught in rooms and they've managed to escape financially over the years. But in actual fact, we're in a position now where they're about to be locked up by the government's commissioners, because we are not actually making the savings that we need. We are in a position where we are precariously unsafe. I mean, for example, it makes quite clear in this report that we are not in a safe situation as far as reserves concerned, and we are likely to be in a situation where the government sends in commissioners, and I think that is a very serious situation. I think that's something we need to consider, and we need to have a much more serious debate and acceptance by the Tory administration that they've made serious mistakes, serious financial problems they've created, and we need to look at this.
Graham, I'm going to come back to you.
Mr. Chairman, I think the portfolio holder has already spoken in this debate.
He has, but Roger, if you'd let me chair this meeting, Roger, that would be useful. Thank you. Right, Roger, thank you. Councillor Butler, you indicated that you might like to have a recorded vote on this. I'm not allowing him to speak, Roger. I'm doing my job. You will need, if you still wish to do that, you will need 15 people to support that. Okay, thank you. A recorded vote it will be then.
Roy Allcroft.
Against.
Jeff Anderson.
Against.
Caroline Bagnall.
For.
Nicholas Bardsley.
Against.
Joyce Barrow. Bernie Bentic.
For.
Thomas Biggins. Peter Broomhall. Julia Buckley.
For.
Kerry Burchett.
Against.
Gwilym Butler. Dean Carroll. Ted Clark. Rachel Connolly.
For.
Rosemary Dartnall.
For.
Steve Davenport. Mary Davies.
For.
Jeff Elner.
Against.
David Evans.
Yay.
Julia Evans.
For.
Roger Evans.
For.
Paul Gill. Rob Gittins. Kate Halliday. Simon Harris. Nigel Hartin. Nick Hignett. Ruth Houghton. Vince Hunt.
Against.
Kirsty Hurst Knight.
Against.
Mike Isherwood. For. Mark Jones. Simon Jones.
Against.
Duncan Kerr. Christian Lee.
Against.
Hilary Love. Nigel Lumby.
Against.
Elliot Lynch. Robert Macy. Richard Marshall.
Against.
David Minery. Dan Morris. Alan Mosley.
For.
Cecilia Motley. Peggy Mullock. Ian Nellins.
Against.
Kevin Pardy. Viv Parry. Ed Potter. John Price. Chris Schofield. Dan Thomas.
Against.
Edward Towers.
Against.
Kevin Turley. David Vasmer. Alex Wagner. For. Claire Wilde.
Against.
Brian Williams.
Against.
Mark Williams. For. Paul Wynne. Thank you.
Okay, we will just give officers a moment to do the sums. Okay, we have 20 votes for the amendment and 39 against. Therefore, that amendment has fallen. So we will go back to the original financial outrun now that the amendment has been dealt with. Obviously, we've had some debate already, but Councillor Kerr, then Councillor Hartin.
Yeah, it's working now. Thank you. I wanted to just, I've alluded to this in the past, I know, but I wanted to reiterate continuing concerns regarding children's services. When we had the task and finish group on the budget, we were shown data which showed very clearly that Shropshire Council has the lowest expenditure per head of population in the whole of the West Midlands, both on children's social care, but also on earlier help for families as well. And I've got a great deal of admiration for the work that Kirsty's doing as portfolio holder, but it's a King Canute Act, isn't it? You're trying to hold back a tidal wave of increased demand, which the council cannot control. And you can see from the data here that this resulted in a nearly £6 million overspend last year. And I have no confidence that we can contain it without putting significant resources. What's happening is we're just getting the same level of need, or not even the same level of need, because the average would be about 50% up on our current expenditure, but a more realistic level of need coming to our doors than they're faced with other West Midlands authority. And I don't think that's been accepted and recognised by the controlling group. And I can blame staff and have a little bit of a ding-dong around that. But these are fundamental services which have a dramatic impact on people's life chances. And we need absolutely to ensure that we budget appropriately for them. And I don't think we are doing so.
Councillor Hartin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Question for Gwilym, I think, in relation to paragraph 2.4 of your report, in particular, the comments that have been made by the LGA Finance Peer Challenge team, which obviously you quite correctly set out here, which remain obviously very concerning. I'd just like to ask you whether or not you're aware of how many occasions during the life of this council, this unitary council, have we been able to achieve those sorts of levels of savings? In other words, 95% of our targets. To my knowledge, I don't think we've ever achieved that. You may correct me if I'm wrong. And if that is the case, what is your plan B if we aren't able to make those savings? Where do we go from there, or are we facing insolvency?
Thank you. Councillor Kirsty Hurst-Knight.
Thank you. And it's just to give some reassurance, especially to Duncan. The early help offer is robustly being looked at, and we are looking at everything we can do to stop children actually coming into care. The work of the Stepping Stones team and the therapeutic hubs are, without doubt, looking at not just the children that has entered care, but exiting so they don't ever come back into our care. And I think we need to congratulate the team on what they're doing. And we are absolutely doing everything before children get to that point. So it's just to give you some reassurance. Thank you.
Thank you. Roger.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Can I just reiterate that I'm not criticising officers in the amendment, and I'm surprised this was alluded to by the portfolio holder. Officers do a splendid job in this authority. The numbers employed, as has been said earlier on in the meeting, have reduced, and we're still delivering things for the residents of Shropshire. If one looks at the outturn report, for example, you see in the corporate landlord property and development, £1.4 million due to delay in achievement of planned efficiencies within the administration buildings. Okay, but the cabinet put that in. That's who I'm complaining about. The cabinet, the portfolio holders that hold these posts, they have not kept an eye on the budget. Or have they kept an eye on the budget? I do not know. But it's the various savings that were supposed to have been made by this council, the lack of investment elsewhere in the county, which would have generated income, would have made savings. I say lights, which is a swear word, I know, for one side of the chamber, because I've been going on about it for 6 years. We could have saved millions of money if the proposal that was made in 2017 was adopted. But due to political reasons, it was not. So it's the cabinet who have made and put the budget together for this council. The council adopted it. the Cabinet have failed to deliver it. And if one looks at the peer review and the amount of savings that are supposed to be made, not from the £650 million budget, because a lot of that is money which is transmitted through this council to other services. It's the budget that this council has control on it, which is a lot less than that. And to save 51 or 53 million pounds is going to be a very hard job for this council and for the officers to deliver it from the position the Cabinet have placed them in. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Buckley.
Thank you. I echo Councillor Evans's comments as to laying the blame on this Conservative administration and, of course, their incompetent friends in Westminster who've run down the economy, not just over the last 13 years, but also with decision after decision that's destroying our economy. We have to correct you, Gwilym, that inflation was already at 5.5% long before anybody invaded Ukraine. So you can wheel out that excuse all you like. But people are not stupid, and we understand very well who has run down the economy. The problem that we see in this report is the outcome of years of the fantasy strategy of this Conservative administration. The idea that you can cut services to our residents whilst play property speculation with high risk investments on the dream that it will generate income for you. Now, because of your own government, both of those dreams are in tatters, are they not? The wild increases in interest rates, and particularly the inflation in construction, where some costs can be as high as 40%, mean that most of your bizarre projects are now completely unviable. You say in your own report, one of the reasons you're not as overdrawn as you thought is because you've had to delay some of your own capital projects because they're too expensive to borrow. So you've caught yourself in your own catch-22. You can't afford to deliver, and if you don't deliver, you haven't thought of any other ways to pay the bills. And the idea that you can save your skin by cutting basic services to the people who pay their tax is disgraceful. You want to cut £51 million, and the LGA have told you that it's very unlikely that you will achieve it. In your own report, you admit last year you only achieved 69% of your proposed savings. If you achieve the same this year, we will already be bankrupt. The report that we're looking at was at the end of year when we had £7 million left in reserves. In the time it's taken this council to print that report and bring it to us to read it, it's even worse. The reserves now are down to 5.6 million. That is less than 1 month's expenditure of this council. How many times have you seen a homeless person and somebody says to you, "There for the grace of God go I," because it could happen to any of us. We are all one paycheck away from becoming homeless. Well, this council, thanks to your mismanagement, is 1 month away from becoming bankrupt.
Okay. Ian, you seconded, you reserved your right.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank Councillor Roger Hughes for acknowledging that we are continuing to support the residents of Shropshire. Unlike a lot of councils which have dropped a lot of their services, we are maintaining services across the county. And I do acknowledge that everybody does support the officers who have worked hard on this. I'd like to thank the portfolio holder and all the team for everything they've done, and I'm glad to second this report. Thank you.
And Councillor Butler. I think there's not many questions there, but
no,
quite a lot of other things you may want to comment on.
Nothing more than what I expected. It's amazing how things change when we're getting close to either a general election or local elections. I think the debate, Duncan, over children's services has already been taken place. I think it is a worry. We won't shy away from anything. We've been open and transparent as we bring everything through scrutiny, as we always do. Nigel, we've both been on this council since its inception, and I don't think I've ever seen a year where 100% of everything was delivered. And we have to remember it's a mid-term financial strategy. It is not a yearly strategy. And it is very common for things to change when they are disrupted by outside forces. But I do take your point. now is more than ever that we actually have to be on the ball. What was I going to say then? Roger. Outside controls, they've certainly, you know, the things we've been talking about, the commercial market has changed, inflation, and that is what has not helped us deliver the savings that we've inspected. Going back to Councillor Buckley, now I don't really want to talk about Birmingham City Council this morning, the Labour-controlled largest council in the country, but I guess that's for the people of Shropshire to decide which side of the fence they want to sit on. And I'm particularly surprised that she doesn't support this council in place shaping Shrewsbury and investing a huge amount of time, hours on the big town plan to ensure that Shrewsbury is one of the most thriving retail centres in the country post-COVID. But of course, Councillor Buckley doesn't want that. She wants it all held by overseas landlords and all boarded up. Well, residents of Shropshire, you make your mind up, especially those in Shrewsbury. I think I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, I think you actually posed probably one of the few questions that I heard, which was, what am I going to say next? Which unfortunately, I don't think anybody could help you with. Okay, it has been proposed and seconded. All those in favour, please show. Oh yeah, count. I know it's important to some members. Are you sure? Yeah. Two. 42, those against, please show. And abstentions. Okay, that item has been dealt with and the recommendations have been passed. Sorry, sliding my paper across my microphone. Move on to item 7, which is the Levelling Up Fund Award for Shrewsbury. I'm going to invite Councillor Dean Carroll as Portfolio Holder for Growth and Regeneration and Housing to present the report, move the report and recommendations be received and agreed. Dean.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This is very similar to a report brought to Cabinet a few weeks ago, which is all about unlocking the Council's contributions to leveraging in the Levelling Up Fund that we've been awarded for the redevelopment of Shrewsbury Town Centre. It's absolutely critical for the place shaping and future long-term viability and vitality of Shrewsbury Town Centre that we are able to proceed swiftly and smoothly with this redevelopment. And that is exactly what this funding received from government will help to pump prime. The amount of match funding that we are putting in compared to the amount that has been received from government is a modest sum to leverage in what we're receiving. And the elements of it, as have been described further down the report, are described as representing high value for money. You can see in table, there isn't actually a table number, but under paragraph 5.3, you can see how the council's contribution is phased between projects and what it's made up of in terms of notional land values and cash contributions. There are recommendations 3.1, 3.2, 3.3 and 3.4.1 and 2 of how we proceed from here. It's very important that we move ahead with this, both for Shrewsbury and the county as a whole. And so I'll move the recommendations and invite questions.
Thank you. That's been seconded by Councillor Mark Jones. Is that correct?
That's correct. I reserve my right.
Okay.
Thanks. So I've got three comments to make on this, but overall, I want to stress that I think that this is a really positive project, and it's fantastic that Shrewsbury has won this investment. And I think the administration officers involved are owed their due on that. The first comment is that I think it would be churlish not to say that there has to be some regret that we didn't get the other bids. Obviously, things went in for Shrewsbury, Oswestry, Craven Arms, and county-wide transport. I think it exposes a gentle absurdity in the way that levelling up funding works. There's much more chancing our arm and seeing what we can get from the government, and much less democratic control and having a council discussion over perhaps which of the four we would have put that money into if we had that pot in front of us. But that's neither here nor there now. We've got the funding. On the topic of funding, I do think it's worth raising attention to the 3.8 million council cash and borrowing that's going into this. It's a repayment of 269,000 on a 5% interest. I do think that's, in light of the last discussion we had, probably worth raising some awareness of where money's going. But as I say, I think the headline is that this is good news. The Smithfield Road area is holding Shrewsbury town centre back. It's unpleasant. It's not a nice street scene at all. There's been pretty limited investment in making it any nicer. And I do think that something radical has to be done to improve that area, just because of the way the road is laid out and with the assets the council now has there. I'm particularly excited by the prospect of some of the housing and flat plans there. I think that there is a real issue with rental property, in particular in Shrewsbury, especially in the more central areas and nearer to the station. If you go on Rightmove, as I did yesterday to check, there are only about 50 properties up for rent listed in the whole town at the moment, and the rents are going up and up. Having part of the housing strategy in the town centre in this fairly innovative way is, I think, very good news. So I don't think the Lib Dem group will be supporting every aspect of the project to come, especially things like the new county headquarters, which I don't think is wholly necessary. But on the whole, this is very good news, and I think that it's very welcome to see some serious investment going into a part of Shrewsbury that I think there will be a knock-on benefit for the whole town and wider county users of it.
Councillor Bentinck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to endorse Councillor Wagner's appreciation of the amount of money that's now been made available to assist with the Riverside development. However, I would like to know what provisions the portfolio holder and the executive have made for the exceptional site costs of Riverside. The Riverside site is alluvial sand and spoil from centuries thrown into the river and nearby area. The Pride Hill development had some of the deepest piles in Europe when it was built, with buildings in Mardle shaken by the Halliburton piling rig that was remembered by those who were in the town at the time in the 1980s. I'm sorry, I'm going on.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure if you'd finished or fallen asleep.
There is an estimate that there may be a potential 30% increase in the cost of building just to get it to the point of whatever development is likely to take place. And this will necessarily be of low-rise character. This is Shrewsbury, not New York. So my particular questions are, what amount of money or percentage have you allowed for the exceptional site cost? And where are the past studies and boring reports on this site that have taken place over the last 60 years? Thank you.
Good. So a question there about boring reports. Julia.
Thank you, Chair.
And then Dan Morris. So,
I'm also going to join the chorus of support for this report, and in particular to congratulate the joint working between Shropshire Council and Shrewsbury Town Council. I know ably led by Alan Mosley. There's been a huge amount of work around the movement strategy, of which this flows from that, and it's very much welcomed as part of the progress. My question refers to section 5.5. So I'm afraid I have very little confidence in the financial planning of this authority based on my previous comments. I'm very concerned to see that we hope to take out a loan to pay for our cash contribution, which could cost us 270,000 a year, assuming an interest rate of 5%. I'd like to ask, have you had an offer letter for the loan? Have we signed that letter? So do we have a signed, approved loan at 5% for the match funding for this project? Because if you don't, I very much doubt that you'll be able to get the interest rate that you imagine, and we need to start planning contingency measures, because once again, you haven't prepared adequately for match funding for such an important project.
Okay, Councillor Julia Evans, then Councillor Dan Morris. I think we'll perhaps head towards a summing up and a vote. I think everybody agrees this is, on the whole, a positive thing. Julia.
Okay, thank you,
Prove me
Chairman.
wrong, no doubt.
I'm not going to vote to refuse the £18 million, but let's remember the whole approach to levelling up from this government has little to do with supporting communities to build resistance, to build up resilient local economies, but seems to be about funding schemes to try and prop up struggling local Tory MPs. I'm also sceptical about whether the Riverside development is the best way to build a resilient, sustainable Shropshire economy, or even a Shrewsbury one. And of course, we are deeply concerned about the plans to move Shropshire Council's HQ out of an existing substantial building into a new building in an area that is going to need extensive expensive remodelling to make it flood resistant. It makes sense in terms of our carbon footprint and the commitment to a net zero by council by 2030. I don't think there's been a case for this yet proved. The report includes a climate change appraisal that states the Lough Award will contribute towards reducing carbon impacts and mitigating increased carbon outputs through sustainable and balanced growth in existing communities, reducing the need to travel for work, providing more sustainable options for travel, as well as growth opportunities for new low carbon development. But this statement is backed up by no evidence, and so risks looking like a greenwash. I welcome the small investment in better connectivity for active travel around the station and linking towards the north of town. But so far, the design pictures don't really justify the description of transforming movement and public spaces. As the Green Group have pointed out before, easy wins could have been achieved already simply by rephasing the traffic lights to make the station area much more accessible to pedestrians who currently find the whole experience of just trying to cross the roads around the station frustrating, just as they do at the town end of the Welsh Bridge. The lack of attention to these relatively easy ways to promote connectivity for pedestrians is very disappointing. It's also difficult to describe this as continuing to a better active travel northern corridor, given the limited distance any changes seem to be planned for. This will do little to make walking and cycling experience from those from the north of the town any better. Nevertheless, this will clearly go through, so we remind the Council that last year in February, the Shrewsbury Town Centre redevelopment phase 1 paper stated that areas of the demolished site beyond that required to accommodate the construction of the multi-agency hub will be remediated for future phases of development and accommodation, meanwhile uses in the interim. So far, despite Green Council questions at Cabinet, we haven't been presented with any ideas of this meanwhile use or any proposals on how to ensure such meanwhile uses are acceptable to the town and model sustainable ways of using this site. We do not support a temporary car park. We would like to see a proper consultation exercise with the opportunity for the people in town to make suggestions for meanwhile use. This could be a street food area, some play facilities, a mini golf park, who knows? It's right that the council should set parameters. We think this should be about modelling sustainable net zero local activities and then ask local people to contribute their ideas. But let's face it, meanwhile, might be several years. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate the officers, the cabinet members involved, and of course MD Patrick and actually Dan Chinsky, who's worked tirelessly behind the scenes to get these level award given to Shrewsbury. Huge achievement.
Thank you, Julia.
I would like to ask the portfolio holder, this investment is obviously a part of a bigger jigsaw, a bigger piece in the investment in Shrewsbury and Shropshire. And of course, it's helpful with the North West Relief Road is coming as well, and it's become part of that. And it really doesn't suit the anti-growth agenda of the Labour Party, who seriously do not seem to want to have investments in Shrewsbury. So I wondered if the cabinet member, Carol, would comment on the piece of the jigsaw this particular investment. Thank you.
Councillor Butler, and then I'm going to go back to the seconder who reserved his right. Yeah, you're Councillor Butler still, I think.
So I couldn't hear, I beg your pardon. It's just point of information on Councillor Buckley's point. The 5% is the Public Works Loan Board, and it is guaranteed. There shouldn't be any rejection on that. However, we will time when we do the borrowing to minimise the costs. We'll only borrow what we need when we need to, if we need to. So that side of things are covered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Mark Jones, you reserved your right. Is there anything you wish to add before I go back to the portfolio holder?
I've only one word, and it's excited.
Yes, covers so many things, doesn't it? And it shows. Okay. So, Councillor Carroll.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you for all of the questions and I think warm support that has greeted this funding. And Dan's absolutely right that it wouldn't be possible without the hard work of our officers, without my predecessors, particularly Councillor Potter and Councillor Charmley, and of course the Member of Parliament for Shrewsbury, who held 6 separate meetings with the ministers to lobby for Shrewsbury and explain and lay out quite how important this levelling up fund bid was for Shrewsbury Town Centre. So I echo everything Dan said, and I will come back onto the North West Relief Road question in a moment. Julia Evans, first of all, Councillor Julia Evans, thank you for your comments. I think it was supportive of regenerating Shrewsbury Town Centre, although it was a little bit hazy and seemed to skip between the positive and the negative in terms of the purposes of the levelling up fund. Well, I would say when money is available for the local authority to bid for regeneration projects in its local area, then I think it's beholden on that local authority to bid for that funding in the interests of its residents, and not to get into the political games of quite what is behind what motivates the government of the day to offer that funding. I know there have been some authorities in the West Midlands of a different colour persuasion to this one who actually declined to bid at various stages for levelling up funds because they didn't want to receive money from a Conservative government supported by a Conservative MP. We will never take that approach as a Conservative administration regardless of the colour of government of the day, and will always look to apply for funding available in the interests of the people of Shropshire. Julia Buckley, Councillor Buckley, I think Councillor Butler has answered your question about loan terms. However, I would also draw you to section 5.6, which sets out that, although we've put in as a worst case scenario borrowing to fund our match contribution, it does set out that we will be looking at every and all opportunities to draw on other sources of funding before we finally commit to borrowing to fund the match funding element. I did miss something on Councillor Evans's question. You said you don't support a temporary car park. Well, it's good that I haven't proposed a temporary car park in that case. we haven't actually proposed what the final temporary meantime use will be for the site. Councillor Bentic, provisions made for exceptional site conditions. The site and the challenges of the site have been known from year dot. We haven't assumed that we'll be building on a pristine greenfield site with no challenges in terms of when we've been drawing up development proposals and outline business cases. So to ask what contingency we're making on top of our plans to accommodate the challenging site conditions, yes, they're challenging site conditions, but that has always been known and acknowledged and part of the outline business case. In terms of boring reports and when boring reports were last done, I will have to get back to you in writing as I don't have that information available to hand. And coming back to finally Councillor Wagner's questions, in terms of the other 3 bids, yes, we're extremely disappointed that we didn't get more than 1 bid over the line. All 4 bids were excellent from a technical point of view, ticked every box. However, we accept that levelling up fund round 2 was oversubscribed to the tune of 3 or 4 times. So we received 1 bid that we are thankful for. We would have liked to receive more, and we don't rule out submitting or resubmitting any of those to future rounds of either the levelling up fund or any other government grant funds that come forward. In terms of the private rented sector market and the...
Can you round up now, Dean, please, because your clock has expired.
Sorry, okay, I'll just come back to the final question that I put aside on the Smithfield Road, and it also comes to Councillor Morris's point. Thoroughly agree with what you said about the changes this will make to the North West Relief Road, about the changes this will make to Smithfield Road, and I hope that you'll see that the traffic that will be taken out of Smithfield Road by the North West Relief Road will convince you to finally put your support behind the North West Relief Road. Thank you, Chair.
Good. Okay. Well, we have recommendations, so we will move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. I don't think you'll need to keep count this time. I think that's unanimous, but just in case, any against? Abstentions? 2 abstentions. Unanimous with 2 abstentions. Okay. We will move on to item 8, which is the local authority housing fund round 2. So I'm going to invite once again Councillor Dean Carroll. Oh, it says portfolio again because I only said it about half an hour ago, to present the report and move that the report and the recommendations be received and agreed.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm delighted to bring this forward. As some of you will remember, a couple of meetings ago, I brought forward the Local Authority Housing Fund first round paper, which was for the acquisition, the permanent acquisition of 30 residential properties part funded by national government or the local authority for initially for the purposes of housing families from a couple of the refugee schemes operating in the county, both the Homes for Ukraine and the Afghan families Afghan families relocation scheme. Funding round 2 from the government is offering the funding to secure 10 further properties for the local authority, 9 of those under the Afghan families resettlement programme, and 1 of those as temporary accommodation in the first instance. One of the most attractive parts of this offer is that once the initial use of these properties has been fulfilled, then they will go into the housing revenue account of the council in perpetuity for affordable and social housing for the people of Shropshire, an addition of further 10 units that wouldn't otherwise have been possible without the funding, match funding provided by government. The figures set out in the report in figure 1 show, and in figure 2 show the contributions, where they're coming from, and how the business case stacks up, and demonstrate that this project will, at the very least in the initial years, wash its own face. And the options that we have considered are outlined on 4.1 as options A, B and C. We've chosen to go with option A, as we think that has both the best short-term benefits in terms of meeting our obligations under the refugee programme, but also the best long-term benefits to the people of Shropshire in increasing the supply of affordable housing in Shropshire for the people of Shropshire. Recommendations are present under section 3, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4. I'll move those recommendations and invite any questions. And I will also apologise, Chairman, that I can't actually see the clock, so I have no idea.
I'll let you know when it runs out.
I have no idea when I'm running out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that again is being seconded by Councillor Mark Jones. Is that correct?
I reserve my right. Thank you.
Good. Councillor Houghton.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really very supportive of this report. I think it's the right way to go forward. I would ask, if possible, that the purchase of properties is across the whole of the county, although I do recognise that there is a need for some sort of cultural integration and groups of people, refugees, to be grouped together where they can access support and access cultural support as well. Given that this money has to be by the end of March, I'd like please that there's an interim report brought back to Council in December to see progress on that and the outcomes of those people supported. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, you reserved your right. Are you going to be excited again, or?
I'll say 2 words. Excellent work.
Up to 3 next time, eh? Councillor Carroll.
Thank you, Chairman. My seconder is gradually doubling the contribution.
Yeah,
with
that doesn't mean to
every
say
report.
you have to double yours either.
Thankfully, I don't have 10 reports on council today, but I do have a further one later. Ruth, thank you for your comments and your support. We are looking at properties available on the market across the county. However, what we do need to balance is, firstly, the affordability of those properties, as although we have this lump sum, we do need to stretch it out for 10 properties. So we do need to balance an equitable spread across the county with achieving best value for 3 and occasionally 4 bedroom properties. But we do look across the county for what properties are available. I am aware that we have already, that isn't me, by the way.
Is that you?
Those strange sounds are me. I am aware that we have already moved to the purchase under round 1 of properties in some more remote rural locations, because that's where the suitable properties were available. In terms of an interim report on progress, more than happy to bring a report on progress back to full council. I am conscious that it is a tight time frame, both under rounds 1 and rounds 2. We are meeting the turnaround time that we need to under round 1. I have full confidence in the team that we will be able to deliver on the time frame that we have for round 2 as well. But I'm more than happy to bring interim reports back in December if that's the wish of council.
Okay, there we go. We do have recommendations. All those in favour, please show. Looks unanimous, but that's what I thought last time. Any against? Abstentions? No, this time it is unanimous. Thank you. So we will move on to item 9, which is the annual report of the portfolio holder for finance and corporate resources. And I would please remind members that the portfolio holder reports we're about to get are for information only. Questions may be put to the portfolio holder on the work that they're undertaking, but as no decisions are taken on these items, there won't be any vote taken at the end. So they are for noting. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to invite Councillor Gwilym Butler to present the report as the portfolio holder for finance and corporate resources, and then to present the report. Gwilym.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I present my annual report, which shows how the organisation has a strategic plan to lead this council into an outcome-led, modern, efficient and most importantly, sustainable council, both for the residents and the staff moving forward. I will not take up your time and talk on all areas of the report, but mention just a couple. I believe a shake-up of local government has been long overdue, and we have certainly got into the trap. We have always done that way, or we've always done it this way. And we believe that gave us a mandate to continue when the world has moved on, both in technology and what customers want and how they wish to be served. When was the last time you paid by cheque for your groceries? The supermarkets haven't taken cheques for 20 years. We still do, and at a cost to the council taxpayer. I fully appreciate we have to have a period of transition and help those who truly can't, rather than those that won't, to help us modernise and save spend whilst providing a good level of service and outcomes for our customers. Since taking on this portfolio, it has been made more open and transparent than ever before, with more regular reporting, alternative budgets and opportunities to engage, especially at scrutiny. Time moves quickly and we are not far from the next local elections. And as member development is part of my portfolio, once the boundary review is finalised, I will be looking at putting a programme together for members after the next election. Many members have mentioned that due to COVID, a lot of initial training was done remotely, and we may have lost the mentoring and development that is so crucial to grow a good elected member. I will hopefully bring ideas through via the cross-party member working group we already have set up. I cannot close my introduction without the important bit, and that is to salute our staff, who we could not do anything without them. They have seen us through COVID, which was hard enough. They have seen us through the last winter cost of living crisis to deal with, but now they are rising to a far greater challenge we are facing in overhauling this great council of ours and modernising, becoming more efficient and being the cornerstone of the sustainability of the future of this council. A heartfelt thanks goes out to every one of them. We will deliver, Chairman, a modern, efficient, sustainable council. I move the report to be noted. Thank you.
Okay. Around the room. Simon. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I just want to thank the portfolio holder for the report. I've just got one question, and that's following on from the excellent partnership work that the Social Task Force did around the cost of living crisis last winter. What action is being taken on the impact of higher interest rates, rental payments and continuing possible high fuel bills this forthcoming winter?
Councillor Barclay.
Thank you. I find this report to be another example of self-congratulatory work when a lot of people's experience of the council is that the service level has changed dramatically. For example, switching the telephones off, asking people to email in, but then not replying to those emails time. So I think the reality may be some distance from what we read in the report. But I have a question for Gwilym Butler, which is a specific one about 6.4, which refers to risk. So there's a lot of detail about all risks, but I'm interested in strategic risks now being shared through the SharePoint. There are 15 strategic risks. And the development of a system enables risks owners to be accountable for their risks and the ability to review, monitor and amend risks where appropriate. So I'd like to ask, who is the risk owner if this council goes bankrupt?
I've got another hand, so Gwilym.
Is that it? Gosh, got away lightly. Thank you, members. Simon, I've spoken to Rachel Robinson, the acting chair. He's already talking with partners regarding the issues again that we might be facing this winter, particularly as there might be slightly different concerns with the effect of interest rates, and I totally get that. The Conservative government has again awarded us over £4 million for the Welfare Hardship Support Grant, and we will be lobbying further for more monies, and we'll be working with partners to actually distribute that where it's needed. Thank you for the question. Julia, and can I put this out to members as a whole? Okay, you talking about this council going bankrupt or becoming insolvent, it isn't. We have a plan, but you talking about this is actually going to really disturb the residents and the staff. And let me reassure you, we have a plan, we have a midterm financial strategy, and it ain't going to happen. You can talk it up as much as you want, but I know which side of the fence the voters would want to sit on is in a Tory administration running this council, unlike the Labour administration in Birmingham. So no fears on that one. I'll put my name to it.
Thank you, Julia. Julia, the debate is
We as
actually
a council are the risk owner.
All right.
No,
Right.
we as a council.
Excuse me, both of you. Thank you. All right. We're not going. If you want to have a little debate about it, you can go outside and do it. You don't have to subject the rest of the membership to it. So, good. Okay. We will move on to item 10, which is the annual report of the portfolio holder for culture and digital. So I'm going to invite Councillor Robert Macy to present the report. Councillor Macy.
Thank you, Chairman. Members have in front of them the portfolio holder report. I do apologise for the length, but it's been a busy year for the departments. As mentioned in the report, it covers the period from July last year, during my predecessor Rob Gittins' time, as well as my own to date. Looking at the digital and information side of the portfolio, key accomplishments include handling over 24,000 incidents and 42,000 service requests since July 2022, migrating an additional 10,000 schools to a managed service, receiving a £100,000 grant for a cyber treatment plan, and launching an updated user-focused council website. Other achievements include conducting a phishing exercise, implementing a new backup system, and establishing a managed security operations centre for enhanced cyber security. In the realm of data and business intelligence, performance management reports have been submitted quarterly and dashboards have been developed for various service areas. Shropshire local customer service points offer face-to-face assistance for residents and continues to be just one of the ways we are using to interact with residents. Under digital infrastructure, the Connecting Shropshire project has achieved significant milestones, the completion of the superfast broadband contracts, the latest of which has connected over 12,500 premises, the scheme helping over 70,000 properties in total and secured improved connectivity in some rural areas. The Culture, Leisure and Tourism Department in Shropshire has achieved remarkable success in demonstrating the value of its services and their impact on local communities. A major accomplishment is the establishment of the Vibrant Shropshire Cultural Compact, a partnership supported by the DCMS and Arts Council England. The independent voice for culture in Shropshire aims to support the implementation of the Vibrant Shropshire Cultural Strategy and its impact on health, well-being, the local economy and the environment. The Cultural Compact Board has secured external funding, recruited a chairperson and is in the process of hiring a Cultural Compact officer. They have also applied for funding to support grassroots cultural organisations. Other notable achievements include the Holiday Activities and Food Programme, HAF, which provides nutritious meal and engaging activities to families with children receiving free school meals. The department's Armed Forces Community Outreach Project has supported the Armed Forces community with additional staff hired to provide personalised assistance and organise events. In the culture and tourism sector, the department has seen record-breaking box office sales for the Christmas pantomime and increased attendance at the Theatre 7 and the Old Market Hall Cinema. The Museums and Archives Service has experienced a surge in visitor numbers and established partnerships with renowned institutions like the British Museum. The council is supporting the visitor economy and tourism sector, which has developed a comprehensive destination management plan focused on sustainable tourism, digital infrastructure improvement and attracting diverse visitors. This all sits alongside providing residents with access to our wide range of facilities across the county, from leisure centres to country parks, libraries and more. I hope members will join me in thanking staff across all these teams for the work they do on behalf of the council. And whilst I've touched on some of the achievements, there are far more in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've got a few councillors who have indicated. Councillor Ruth Houghton.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the report, which is really very positive. I'd just like to comment on the 8.41 sports and leisure and the comments regarding Spark, which is a leisure centre and in the Bishop's Castle, and note that it's really encouraging to see a 40% improvement in usage. Part of this is due to the equipment that's been mentioned and the refurbishment of the fitness equipment. And I'd like to take this opportunity to say a very big thank you to the local community who, over the last 5 or 6 years, have raised in excess of £200,000 to support that leisure centre, £90,000 of which has funded the equipment in the gym. Looking forward, the swimming pool is 50 years old next year at Bishop's Castle. And to celebrate that sort of golden anniversary, we will be launching a new fundraising campaign. So I'd just like to say to councillors here, look out for the next report next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alex Wagner.
Thanks. So I'd like to thank the portfolio holder for putting together a really comprehensive report. Shrewsbury, which I can speak for more than the rest of the county, has a really fantastic cultural offer, and some of the specifics listed in this report, which goes into a good amount of detail, like improvements to the old Market Hall Undercroft, Curland Pumping Station, and the Theatre 7. I've no doubt if we can make those improvements and get those short-term priorities going, there will be a noticeable impact, and that will be really fabulous for the town's cultural offer. However, in a quite detailed report, I think there is a notable omission, which is that there is not a single mention of the quarry swimming pool across the entire report. Now, for this period, the main quarry pool has been shut. Shropshire Council has committed £400,000 and hired a specialist contractor in order to fix it up. There was a petition by residents to get a date set in stone. That date's now been moved twice. I saw press reports, I think, yesterday about the date of the quarry pool reopening being moved. But as I say, in this report, there is only a line in 8.4.1 about improving swimming in Shrewsbury. It doesn't even make specific reference, even though that surely must be one of the bigger projects being undertaken under the portfolio and one of the more important leisure facilities in the whole county. So I was wondering if we might be able to hear some more about the current state of play with the quarry pool, especially given the press reports yesterday about the delays to its reopening. And I also note that we've got some specialist contractors in, according to the press reporting and round-robin emails that have gone out to members. Would they be willing to talk about why there might be ongoing delays? I know it was difficult to get them in the first place. Might that be useful for members?
Thank you. Councillor Gittins.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll try and keep this brief. For 4 years, I'm still suffering from a little bit of baby brain. But what I will say is over the past 2 years, it's been an honour to work on this ever-evolving and innovative and diverse portfolio. And during this time, I've worked with officers to lead the way in doing things differently through both technology and digital first. I'm also very proud to have overseen the council increase coverage of its superfast broadband provision to 98.5%, becoming the #1 rural local authority in the country to have achieved such a high percentage of coverage. And over my time, I've always recognised the hard work and out-of-the-box thinking of our officers. I've always pushed for nominations for regional and national awards for our staff, and I would like to ask if Councillor Macy would be willing to carry on this work. Finally, I would like to thank officers for all their hard work and support in helping to deliver this council's objectives, and wish Councillor Macy the best of luck during his time as portfolio holder for this really exciting portfolio of innovative tech and fun. Thank you.
Councillor Caroline Bagnall.
Thank you. I found the report very interesting, and it's great to see just how much has been achieved in recent times. However, there are a few points that I would like to make. I mean, first of all, congratulations to those who've worked so hard to achieve so much. However, Shrewsbury is not the only place in Shropshire. There's a huge amount here that tells us about Shrewsbury and things that have gone on in Shrewsbury. I live in a community in Broseley where we don't have a direct bus route to Shrewsbury, so a lot of my residents haven't got access to what goes on there. It would be great great if we could see some sort of museum on the move type of activities where artifacts and so on were brought out to some of the smaller communities so that people could access those as well. As far as libraries are concerned, there's some great work going on in libraries, but in Broseley, we pay for our own library. We also pay for the libraries elsewhere in Shropshire, so we pay twice in Broseley. So I would very much like to see things being equalised a bit with regard to that. Our park, fabulous parks throughout Shropshire, and we're very, very proud of our park in Broseley. However, it's owned by Shropshire Council, but Broseley Council, Broseley residents, pay around about £20,000 a year for its upkeep. So there's an inequality across the county. I'm sure Broseley is not the only place that suffers from this. And I would be very grateful if some consideration could be given to sort of levelling up for the rest of Shropshire. But I don't want to take away anything from Shrewsbury. What's going on there is great. But I'd just like to level things up for other parts of the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to go back to the portfolio holder to I didn't write you down because your name's not written down. But there you go. If you'd like to speak, I will allow you to speak. But I didn't see your hand and I didn't write your name down. I will do it now.
Can I speak then?
Well, you can now. Or continue speaking, I should say.
Tourism and development. I'd like to say thank you about the library in Ludlow, who the staff are working very, very hard and have really brought that library into life.
Viv, can I just ask you to put your microphone on? And perhaps for Ruth to turn hers off, lest she say something she doesn't want us to hear.
Yes. I'd like to say thank you about the library in Ludlow. It's doing very well. Thank you to the staff there who are working very hard to make it like that. I go and I have my surgery there once a month and it's really thriving. But I'd like to go back to something that happened when I came here to the council last month. When I got home, I found out that we had not been informed, any of the Shropshire councillors been informed that there was going to be a survey of walking and cycling and different things in the town. We had not heard anything about this. I was quite astounded to get people coming up to me in the street and saying, did you not know? Where have you been, Mrs. Parry? Why were the rest of you not here? So I'm sorry, but we were not informed that there was going to be a new scheme to consult the planning of road closures in Ludlow and also Castle Street car park. Now, I'm sorry, the three of us, the three councillors, myself and the two Huffers, do not agree with this. And neither do any of the people in Ludlow. I have had so many complaints. Where does Shropshire Council get the idea that we want our highways closing? It will kill the town stone dead. We are not like the other market towns. We do not have a ring road in the centre of Ludlow. We cannot get people in and out if the roads are closed.
We're commenting on the report for the culture.
I'm sorry, I'm getting to where I'm going.
You're right, but
let me speak.
Try and get there a bit quicker,
Let me
please.
speak.
Right, thank you.
Right.
Let's concentrate on the item on the agenda.
But the thing is, tourism buses would not be allowed in the town centre either. So our culture and our development as a town would be nil. We have shops at the moment that are closed in the town centre. And I'm sorry, but this will kill our town centre completely stone dead. None of us, the three of us, do not want this to happen. The town council does not want it to happen. And I, as a councillor here, wanted to say that today. Please, can we have more consultation about this? The shops at the moment are not doing very well. We do not want the town centre closed. Yes, walking and cycling in other parts of the town. Yes, 20 miles an hour for some of the cars coming through. But to close it would kill a stone dead. And I wanted to say that today. Thank you.
Councillor Nellings.
Yeah, I'd just like to respond to that because, first of all, the LT Whip plan was well and truly publicised everywhere. I think I can't understand why it wasn't picked up by the three members. It was unfortunate that the one for Ludlow did fall on a council day, but I think I'm right in saying that it was on their full council, because I went to Church Stretton straight afterwards. If you let me speak, please.
Viv, can you let him speak? Thank you.
I think I'm right in saying that some of the members for Ludlow who complained about it weren't even at council, so I can't understand why that happened. What I'd also like to say is the Ludlow, for whatever reason, Ludlow thinks that everybody's made decisions, and it was a consultation. Consultations being considered, so no decisions have been made on closing any roads in Ludlow, etc. Some options were thrown up for people to look at, and they will go back to consultation when it comes. So I think Ludlow people, somebody asked me if I've seen Ludlow's Facebook page on it. The consultation was not on Ludlow Facebook page, it was on Shropshire Council's page. And I think if that message could be passed back, it would be greatly appreciated. No decision will be made without consultation with the community. Thank you.
Good. So, Councillor Macy.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of Ruth's comments, yes, great. I think from our point of view, again, it's that involvement with the community in their local facilities and making those decisions and helping is a great thing for us. So, yeah, we look forward to where we go next with that. In response to Councillor Wagner, in terms of an update on the quarry, I think most of the members, certainly in my group on this side, will be shocked that I haven't talked about swimming as yet within this. So you will be hearing a lot more about swimming over the coming years. In terms of an update, that there's not much more to add other than what we've put into the public at this point, where we're now expecting it to reopen in September. It is those works that are ongoing in terms of ventilation and so on. But as I understand it, it just is a complicated piece of work to complete. Where I've got further updates and so on, I have no issue with sharing those out as well. But I share their disappointment. It's slipped just over that period. In terms of Rob, yeah, thank you for the work you have done as the portfolio holder. It's the enthusiasm that's within the teams across both the digital side and the culture, leisure and tourism shines through. When I've met with them so far, I've met with staff, they have been really keen to get on with the things they have planned. We've reorganised the teams within those departments. So there's now, I met with the new culture, leisure and tourism department heads yesterday. They're all keen to get on with things over the next year. So absolutely, I think we should be recognising those staff and their achievements as we go forward. I did apologise to them yesterday that I only have limited time today in terms of being able to do that sort of thing. So in terms of coming on to Councillor Bagnall's, in terms of Broseley and the facilities outside Shrewsbury, actually, I think you'll find most of the things certainly within culture, leisure and tourism, certainly with things like Shropshire Local and so on, a great number of them sit outside of Shrewsbury. There are some that sit in the county town, things like the archives and things like that as well, and the libraries and so on. But there are a great number spread across the county. I'm actually going to look at a few of the ones over the coming months and so on. So I'll quite happily highlight those as I go around. In terms of towns and parishes putting in additional support for the facilities in their area, certainly if that's a conversation and they want enhanced facilities in their area and other things like that, then we're happy to have those conversations, such as in Broseley. I don't think it's a case of us not looking at those on an individual basis, but certainly it's trying to spread the resources we've got across the whole of the county. So we will look at those. And in terms of VIVs, I think, Ian, you've covered that off, because I don't think technically that comes under the report I've submitted. So thank you for doing so. But as I say, hopefully I'm fully expecting that next year's report will be as full as this one, with all the things that we've got planned over the coming year. So thank you.
Thank you. Good. Well, we will move on to item 11, which is changes to committee membership. I'm going to ask the council to confirm the changes that are in front of them. I'm not going to read them all out. I propose that.
I second it.
All those in favour, please show. Any against? Abstentions? No, it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. So we will move on to item 12, which is notices of motion. Now, the first motion that we have received is from Councillor Dan Thomas and is supported by a number of councillors. Again, I won't read them all out. Councillor Thomas.
Excuse me, Chairman, I do have there's an amendment that's...
You do, but did you want to just say...
Oh, sorry, I'm happy to accept the amendment. Yeah.
Right, okay. Whose amendment was it? Got it here somewhere. Kate Halliday. Okay, I believe you want to say if you're happy to accept the amendment, so we'll take that as the principle now, but you do want to say a few words on it. So I will go to Kate Halliday first, get it seconded, then come back to you. Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for accepting the amendment. Members will be pleased I'm not going to read it out. I apologise, it was rather long. I'll just make the key points that I was hoping to draw from this amendment. I think in terms of climate, it's very hard to defend the use of disposable vapes, and I think that argument alone is strong enough for calling on legislation to ban. I think for the youth vaping and for reducing youth vaping, I think on its own, it could potentially be a bit of a blunt tool, and there may be some unintended consequences with it. We have a really strong looking task and finish group that's attached to the Health and Wellbeing Board, who've produced an update report a couple of weeks ago pointing out how easy it is to get illicit vapes online. There's some horrible things in these vapes. We really don't want to drive people towards buying online vapes. And they've also shown links to the possible exploitation of children by pushing them towards organised crime gangs who tend to like to sell illicit things to people, especially if they're banned. So I just want to make the wider point that vaping itself is actually a really positive intervention. The government strongly support vaping. It's the best intervention by far to help people reduce and stop tobacco use. So we don't necessarily want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So what I'm suggesting is, and I'm supporting the ban on disposable vapes, but I think we need to do more. So we need to look at things like marketing. We all know when we go to a shop, we don't see the tobacco products anymore. They're behind doors. They have plain packaging. I think we need to start doing that for vaping products, especially as they're so attractive to young people. I think we need to improve prosecution. I mean, it is good. Trading standards in Shropshire have actually really moved forward, and I'd like to, say that that's positive, and it's been recognised by the LGA. But we can always do better. Spot checks show that 100% of disposable vapes in car boot sales are non-compliant, and about 50% in discount stores and mobile phone shops. So we need to do more of that. Smoking cessation has been kind of pretty much decimated. I popped in my postcode this morning to see where my nearest smoking cessation service was, and it's Staffordshire. We don't have smoking cessation, and when the gums and the patches came in, we used to be able to get these for free on on the NHS, and most of them came through pharmacies. In a sense, we've kind of outsourced supply of vapes to the retail sector, and they're quite happily marketing them to young people and not necessarily behaving like we'd like to. So I think we really need to boost our smoking cessation services if we're going to achieve a good result here. And also, we could do better with disposal. There is actually legislation to say that people selling vapes should be actually offering to take them back, to dispose of them safely, and to give information out. So I think we really need to look at that. And finally, health promotion. We really need to get out to children and young people, and it's nice to see the Health and Wellbeing Group are beginning to look into that, but we need to support them. So I'm gonna finish up shortly. I think one of my concerns about the motion was that we were just looking at what calling on what the government could do. And there's actually quite a lot that we are doing, but we could do better as well in Shropshire, including enforcement, smoking cessation, health promotion. And so I'm really pleased that you've accepted this amendment and that we can look at things in the full round and not just around a ban.
Thank you. And it's being officially seconded by... Good. Glad somebody put their hand up. Okay, thank you. Excuse that. Okay, I'm going to bring back, because I know, Dan, you wanted to say a few words, so I'll bring you back in now, and then I've got Richard Marshall and then anybody else. So, Dan.
Brilliant, thank you, Chairman. The motion came originally about from Walks My Family, where I see frequently disposable vapes abandoned around the town and walks on wildlife, and from my wife, who alerted me to the health concerns of vapes. The timing of the motion is also apt, as it's Plastic Free July, and I represent the town of Much Wenlock, which was awarded plastic free community status last year by Surfers Against Sewage. And whilst vaping might be effective in stopping or helping stop adults smoking cigarettes, the problem is that children and teenagers are getting hooked on vaping because the devices are pretty much everywhere you turn. Vaping could be the next health epidemic, particularly among young people, which is why this motion speaks to them. We can mitigate the harmful effects on individuals, communities and the environment by calling for a ban on these products. Disposable vapes pose significant health risks to our youth and non-smokers who may be enticed by these products. And by banning them, we can help prevent the onset of nicotine addiction and its potential consequences for future generations. Single-use plastic vapes contain hazardous materials such as lithium, e-liquid and wiring, which pose a threat to wildlife. Lithium, in particular, is something that is in global demand, as lithium and copper are elements that are crucial for our efforts to tackle climate change and the green transition. Disposable vapes in particular are aggressively marketed and designed to appeal to young individuals. Circumventing regulations aimed at preventing youth access to nicotine products, such as how you see cigarettes hidden behind the counter. Their attractive design and appealing flavours, such as fruit and candy, contribute to their popularity among minors. Banning disposable vapes will curb their availability and remove an attractive gateway to nicotine addiction for our youth, whilst the other part of the motion gets them out of sight in the same way that tobacco products are. And finally, I believe that disposable vapes place a very significant burden on our public health systems. The associated health complications include respiratory issues, cardiovascular diseases, and addiction-related treatments, which strain healthcare resources. By banning disposable vapes, we can prevent these health issues and alleviate the financial burden on healthcare, benefiting society as a whole, and whilst protecting our beautiful Shropshire countryside. Therefore, I ask you to support the motion today and call on the government to ban disposable vapes. By doing so, we can protect our communities, safeguard future generations, and promote a healthier and sustainable society. Thank you.
Okay, well, I've got a number of members who wish to speak. I'm going to start with Richard Marshall, Kirsty Hurst-Knight, Bernie Bentic, Cecilia Motley and Chris Schofield. So, Councillor Marshall.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm going to speak as the portfolio holder for regulatory services, and obviously trading standards comes under that. I actually want to pay tribute to our trading standards and enforcement officers in the regulatory services. We do regularly go out and check and challenge on the purchase of any age-restricted products on the market. And recently, there's been two quite high-profile cases that we successfully took to court and had secured a prosecution. On the one particular case, without going into specifics, I was a tad disappointed with the magistrates on this after the sterling work of trading standards in securing the prosecution. On appeal, the magistrates reduced the initial fine of nearly £1,000 down to £140, which realistically, there's no deterrent there as well. So I'm comfortable and confident that our enforcement are working really well. But I would like to go and note that we need the judicial system also to give our officers the support that they need.
Councillor Kirsty Hurst-Knight.
Thank you. Yeah, it was just to give you some background. Kate did allude to it, so thank you, Kate. We're not starting from a point of zero here. You know, within my portfolio, Richard's just talked about it, and with health, Cecilia Motley chairs the Health and Wellbeing Board. The initial paper that came out, we weren't comfortable with some of the language because it almost encouraged children to go and vape rather than smoke. So there's a lot of work, hence the formation of the Task and Finish group, which I'm sure Councillor Motley will talk about. But yeah, we are reporting into the Health and Wellbeing Board, and there's a lot of work with our professionals. Digital updates are going out to all our educational providers and schools, colleges, to give them the tools and understanding of the effects of vaping for our youngsters. The other thing is to, again, thank you to licensing. So all the work that we're doing through the CE board, the child exploitation, we're working together greatly with the police as well. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and really a great thank you to the trees team there to get this right, Together Reducing and Ending Exploitation in Shropshire, about the up and coming and the vape trading that we know is going on within schools. So there is a lot of work in support, and yeah, I support this motion and the amended motion. The words thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bernie Bentinck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While I wholeheartedly support the use of vaping as part of a programme to reduce and stop smoking, I think that we need to be very concerned about suggesting that it is without risk. In February 2020, the American Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed 2,800 cases of e-cigarette or vape use associated lung injury and 68 deaths attributed to that condition. Additionally, there are reports of heart disease and other cardiovascular disease in those who vape. And so my position is I would support the use of vaping in adults only as part of a programme of smoking cessation with a defined endpoint, because otherwise I believe that we will simply replace smoking with the long-term adverse effects of vaping. As for children, there is no reason to suppose that the risks are any less. And so vaping in children is such a serious problem that I think it needs urgent action to stamp it out. And so I wholeheartedly support the stopping of vaping in children and young people, and the full arm of the regulatory parts of Shropshire Council in achieving this. Thank you.
Councillor Cecilia Motley.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think we all feel exactly the same way about this particular, what has now become rather a craze, unfortunately. Certainly, this is very much on the radar of the Health and Wellbeing Board. We will be receiving regular updates on action against youth vaping. It's very important, I think, that the schools understand how pernicious this is, and also that they do everything they can to dissuade children from getting caught up in this, because unfortunately the age at which children start using vapes is getting lower and lower. So we've got real problems now in children from the ages of 11 to 15, for example, and that is not good. The government seems to be well sighted on this via the Office for Health Improvement, and particularly the issue of youth vaping, although previous speakers have pointed out that there is a lot of government support for adult vaping because it seems to be such an effective way of getting people off smoking cigarettes. There's been an independent review done by a gentleman called Dr. Khan on behalf of government, who has recommended closing a loophole which allows free samples of vapes to go out to young children, just be, handed out to them. And this has got to be a positive, but it has to be very fiercely followed up, as Richard was saying, in terms of our regulatory services. And the other thing, which I think would make an enormous difference, is restricting packaging, because that did help a lot in getting people off cigarettes. So that everything's put in plain wrappers, and it's much harder and not put at the front of the shop. So I think this is something which we are all very concerned about. Certainly, from the point of view of the Health and Wellbeing Board, we will be keeping a very close eye on it. Our public health consultants are very concerned about it. So I think it's a really good thing that Dan Thomas has raised this and that it can have an airing today. Thank you.
Councillor Chris Schofield.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm glad Councillor Dan Thomas has brought this before the council today. When people that were really young, they used to sneak a cigarette behind the bike shed out the way. This is blatantly being done in front of the public. From the I would say less than the 11-year-olds that I've seen in Oswestry going around them. And I would have thought in this day and age, with the environmental concerns and Greta Thunberg and everything like that, that the education in school would be far better to teach the youngsters of today that this is not acceptable. And I take Bernie Bendick's points about the vaping to get people off cigarettes, but this is environmentally damaging. And I'm just so glad that Dan has brought it. I did bring it up at the scrutiny meeting to go on the work programme, so I don't know where that's gone, but I think Kirsty has assured me that there was work being done on it. So again, well done, Councillor Dan Thomas.
Okay, Councillor Jeff Elner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also very happy to support this. I think it's very, very important, but I've just Googled, you can buy these vapes online. So if we're talking about stopping shops from selling them, that's not sufficient. I think we need to also look at advertising restrictions within the county or within schools or anywhere that young children go. If you can buy these online, you don't stand a hope in hell of stopping people from buying them. Thank you.
Okay. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't allow this, but I think we're all on the same page and it's not contentious. So, Kate, you may have one quick word as you keep showing me it's going to be a very quick one.
It's going to be very quick. I'd just like to correct Councillor Bentinck. The deaths that he was referring to in America, the deaths and also the lung problems were from people who bought their vaping devices on the black market or they had modified e-liquids. So I just, the government's position is, and we've got over 15 years of research now, that there's no known long-term risks to vaping. Thank you very much.
Okay, right. We've done on that, so we will move to a vote. Obviously, because the motion has been accepted by Councillor Thomas, that is now the substantive. I think we're probably going to be unanimous, but nevertheless, we will do due process. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? That is unanimous. Right. That brings us on to the next motion, for which I will be handing over to my Vice Chair, Brian Williams, and I shall be leaving the room. And then we should be heading towards lunch. Good.
Don't get your lunch ready. Well, the next item is a motion submitted by Councillor Julia Evans, and I invite Julia to present her motion to the council.
Thank you. I'd just like to say it's been seconded by Councillor Duncan Kerr. In 2015, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, an agency for the World Health Organization, published its findings into the relationship between cancer and sorry. Thank you. I did practice. It is a herbicide, and classified it as possibly carcinogenic. It had scientific data that it definitely caused malignant tumours in animals. With this in mind, Shropshire Council has no policy on its use or handling. I'm putting forward this motion to to ban glyphosate use in all bar 2 exceptions: the invasive species Japanese knotweed and giant hogweed. I cannot believe that in a biodiversity crisis that a substance is being used that is not only possibly carcinogenic, but probably harmful for many ground-burrowing insects, including certain species of bee and other pollinators, and not to have a policy on its usage. The Council has a duty under the Environment Act of 2021 to conserve and enhance biodiversity. With the backtracking of another harmful pesticide ban, a neonicotinoid, by the government, which severely affects many pollinator species numbers, which have been falling dramatically over the last few years. One study in Germany estimated that we have lost 76% of all insects, too many extinct species, from 1990 to 2020. That's 3 years ago. Numbers have changed since that date, some improvements, but over the last month, with the increasing the hottest June on record, we've had a possible further overall decline. According to the Pesticide Action Network UK, protective equipment and training are rarely used, and policymakers are ill-informed on the possible effects of the pesticides. It also has an effect on climate change during the production of these chemicals and in transportation when other methods are less impactful. They also have a possible effect on soil's ability to sequester carbon, and this is yet to be fully understood, but there's research going on in that field. Pardon the pun. Alternatives to glyphosates are available that are not harmful to wildlife or to humans. Firstly, we need to get away from the neat and tidy approach. It leads to dead tidy, not nature rich. Many insects thrive in long grass, feed on wildflowers, and yet we mow it all down, leaving them without food or shelter. Second, there are methods to reduce, prevent, or remove: intelligent planting, mulching, mechanical removal of foam, electric or flame usage. We need a nature recovery strategy that includes, leaving areas alone and a pesticide and herbicide ban. According to PAN, hundreds of tons of pesticides and herbicides are used in our open spaces each year. It gets into humans via touch, inhaling and food, gets into water systems and river, creating a part of a chemical cocktail, and their effects are yet to be fully understood, but we are seeing ecologically dead streams and rivers in an increasing number. Please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Now, Duncan.
I'll reserve my right to speak.
You better reserve them. Right. I have an indication from the Councillor Marshall wishes to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Shropshire Council work very closely with our contractor Kier and other partners regarding the use of glyphosate. I know you're paying with the word. And we are working to the phasing out of the product. However, there is currently no effective alternative, although Kia, in a very, very proactive way, have linked up with Aston University to research and trial other products. Now, many councils that have banned glyphosate have had problems since they put the ban in place. An article published on the Mail Online, 21st of March of this year, states, the Green-led Council of Brighton and Hove has caused fury by asking residents to weed their own streets and pavements, as the pavements, streets, walls, and most importantly, drains have been overrun by unwanted plants. In August 21, North Lanarkshire Council reallowed the use of glyphosate due to the increase of uncontrollable weeds. In August of the following year, the Isle of Wight did exactly the same due to the increase of block drains caused by uncontrollable plant growth. If we were to bring in a ban on glyphosate and switch to the less effective alternatives, we would need to revisit sites 2, 3, maybe even 4 times to come anywhere close to controlling weeds. Now, this would result firstly in increased costs, and also if we're looking at protecting the environment, if we're having to revisit sites with the lorries 2, 3 times, it's increasing the council's carbon footprint. Kia have in place very, very robust safety systems and they use all the systems of handling under the regulations under COSH, the carriage substance is hazardous, and they use spot spray methods to ensure that when used, it is done in a targeted and safe manner. Now, it is really important for us to keep our drains clear across the county. The two biggest enemies of the highways assets is water and also plant growth. Where the plant growth can get under footpaths, under the roads, and it can start to break the surface, the water will seep in. Also, as well, if we don't clean our drains and keep the drains clear of weeds and unwanted growth, we run a higher risk of flash flooding. And as we know, Shropshire can suffer from flooding. So it's important that we actually do that. When heavy rainfall is there, we need to keep our drains clear. Now, whilst I support any move for safer working, to ban the usage of glyphosate without an effective alternative in the suggested 5 months' time, because it was in the original motion, it was December of this year that they want the ban to come in place. It's genuinely not realistic nor practical, because there isn't that alternative out there at the moment that's effective. So unfortunately, whilst I respect the principles of the motion, I will not be able to support it in its current form.
Thank you. I hope you're all enjoying the chemistry lessons that's before us. Dean Carroll.
Thank you very much, Vice Chairman. I've got two questions that I'd like to ask the proposer, seconder, or anybody else who may be able to help me with answering them, although I don't necessarily expect that you'd be able to give me chapter and verse. But in the first instance, can I invite you please to speculate on why two of the links provided at the bottom of the motion to the background information lead to web pages that have been removed? And secondly, how much of the supporting evidence in this motion relies upon the information that was in those two web pages that seem to have been removed, please?
Thank you. Yes, Rosemary.
Thank you. I'm not going to comment on, sorry, I can't comment on Councillor Dean's comments. As Councillor Evans has told us, the World Health Organization reclassified glyphosate as probably harmful to human health 8 years ago. Therefore, we should stop using herbicides and pesticides that are potentially harmful to human health to avoid risk to our own staff, contractors, and risk to the public who use our parks and other public places to reduce environmental pollution. UK wildlife is in crisis, which is a fundamental problem that will likely impact our food chain in the long run. Glyphosates and neonicotinoids are responsible for shocking mortality rates of 94 to 96% in pollinator insects, whether through direct or indirect contact. Animals suffering from the toxic effects include honeybees, birds, amphibians, and fishes, which strongly indicates contamination in wider areas than the application sites, for example, by soil leaching or runoff into our rivers and streams. There are documented concerns for the long-term impacts on soil and water quality. I note Councillor Marshall's comments, and of course they're highly valid. However, after 46 years of glyphosate-based product application, approximately 38 different resistant to these products weed species have been documented, indicating a reduction in efficacy over time. So it is time for us to investigate environmentally safer weed control methods, as Councillor Evans' motion proposes, and I urge all council to support this motion and this move.
Thank you. Well, having sorry, I can't see who that is.
Sorry,
oh, Rob.
Yes, Councillor Yesins here. Just a very quick question, actually, in regards to one of the points made about the trial of pesticide-free alternatives. None of these have been effective against things like Japanese knotweed. So how, if we were to pass a motion like this, how on earth are we meant to remove Japanese knotweed from council structures?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
There being nobody else, I go back to Duncan for
just the last
reserved his right.
Thank you. Just please read the motion. It's been read out to you. It specifically excluded Japanese nut weed very clearly in the motion. So, I mean, why on earth you choose to raise something which is specifically addressed by the proposer? Just shows, I'm afraid, you weren't listening. In terms of glyphosates, I mean, this is not a small issue. I mean, the Freedom of Information request showed that the Shropshire Council uses nearly 1,500 litres of herbicides and glyphosates in a year. That's a huge quantity of material. How's that reduced over the interim period since the World Health Organization classified it as possibly carcinogenic? No. There's no evidence that we're working as a plan with planned targets to reduce the use. If we were doing that, we wouldn't need to bring the motion. But this is, again, a typical case where we like to speak the fine words about ecological risk, and we all speak those words and we all have crocodile tears, but ask the council to do anything about it, and it's all full of reasons as to why you can't. You say there's no alternative. Well, I mean, glyphosates have only been around since about the early 1980s here. What did we do before? You know, did we just manage not to be able to kill a weed before? That somehow we can't find other mechanisms. Speak to those councils, including highways authorities like Bath and North East Somerset, who have turned away from using glyphosates, and they've got effective foam treatments and other treatments for killing weeds, and they are effective. And it's about 100 councils now who have taken that step of recognising that ultimately you have to choose. You have to choose which might cost you a little bit more. I do concur with that. But would you rather that, or are you going to use something that is possibly carcinogenic? Just think that through. Possibly carcinogenic, and you know it will have significant impacts on the ecology of our world. And that's the world you're going to be leaving your children. And you're going to ask your operators to use that material. And you'll know there's been lots of cases already settled by Monsanto and other organisations where they've had to pay significant sums to operators who use this stuff day in and day out and will suffer the results of it. So 8 years is an awful long time to wait for something that we all concur is important, and we all concur there's an ecological emergency. It does sound a little bit like what I was going to say your current, but of course is your government environment Minister Lord Goldsmith, when he says your leadership on this is apathetic and personally unmoved on climate change. He says that about the leader, which is Sunak of your party, and I hope that the community of Shropshire will not have to form the same judgment about your leadership in Shropshire, because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like you want to say all the nice things and so on nice things about the climate, but the moment it comes to doing anything that might be difficult or anything that actually deals with a carcinogen, you're not interested. You'd rather carry on just as we were. So there are alternatives. We've shown you there are alternatives. We've had 8 years to put a plan into place. Not 1 litre of a target has been reduced as a result of that. 8 years of complete inactivity. Now's the time to show you really mean what you say about your concern for the climate and the ecological emergency we're facing, and support this motion. Thank you.
Julia, will you respond to the debate, please?
Yeah, I did check all the websites and they were working when I put it in. I don't know why it has been taken off. I've just checked it and you're right, it has been taken off. There are litigation going on, and they have been finding in favour of the people affected. So, and against, there was a huge claim in the USA where it was millions to the plaintiff. So yes, I concur with everything Councillor Kerr has just said. Thank you.
Right. Would you take the vote now? So perhaps all those in favour, we'll take the count. All those in favour? All those against, please show. There were 21 voted for the resolution and 32 votes against it. Any abstentions? So 32 were against it, 21 for and 2 abstentions. So the motion is lost. Thank you. We'll now get the chairman back in again. I hope you might be minded to carry on to lunch.
Okay. I can see you're pleased to have me back. Hope you didn't miss me too much. The only thing I want to do, we are going to stop for lunch because I know, as has been explained before, 1 or 2 members do have health issues and need to top up. The only thing I would like to do, if that's all right, is just get to the exempt minutes part so that we can then switch off the live feed and we don't leave people sitting at home for half an hour, if that's all right. And then we'll deal with that after lunch. Except my glasses have disappeared somewhere into my pocket now. So I will need those to be able to read. Okay, I'll fish those out later. Okay. We do have questions from members. I think there were 6 member questions allowed according to Rule 15. Questions are being received from Councillors Wagner, Bentic and Roger Evans. Councillor Wagner, do you have a supplementary question?
Only a brief one, which is the statistics there in a very detailed and very comprehensive response from Councillor Motley. So funding's risen from 95 million to 102 in the last year. Is this essentially just covering the cost of inflation, or are any new schemes likely to sort of be included as a result of that boost? Sorry. Yeah, just a quick one, which is funding, according to that very detailed answer, has gone up by £7 million from 95 to 102 million. I know you've included several points in there, but broadly speaking, is that funding just covering rising costs, or is that sort of pushing new schemes forward?
I would ask for questions and answers to be brief if we can at this stage.
Yeah, I will actually get you a note on that because I think it may be a bit of both.
Good, thank you. Councillor Bentic, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a supplementary question, but would like to comment.
No. This is supplementary questions only, not comments.
In that case, can I ask the question? As there was no commitment to a women's health hub in the 2023-24 budget, which I find disappointing, can the portfolio holder please advise when it will become a priority? Because the government has said it is. 51% of the population, that is women, struggle to access adequate health care throughout the country and also in Shropshire. Thank you.
If I could reply to that, I think, Councillor Bentic, this is a question that needs to go straight up to the Integrated Care Board, actually. As far as we're aware, there is not funding available from government at the moment for this purpose. So I would strongly recommend that this could maybe be put through joint HOSC and raised that way.
Okay. Good. Councillor Evans, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Marshall, for the answer. I note the words used in the reply, severe mobility problems, deal with applications in a timely manner. It is a medium-term project. Many go on holiday at this time of year, visit areas which are unfamiliar. A current blue badge is desperately needed. When will the backlog be cleared, and are any of the delays due to the wish of this council becoming a digital council?
Okay, I'll respond now if I may, Chair.
Yeah.
Right, the delay is temporary. Just to give some idea of that, we've increased from 2 members of staff processing up to 4 members of staff processing. It has absolutely nothing at all to do with us going digital at all. We act as an agent for the DFT, and we have to sit there with a very, very stringent eligibility criteria in allowing blue badge issue. But it is a temporary thing. We are increasing the staff even further. We currently have 3 vacancies available in licensing.
Thank you. We will move rapidly on to item 14, which is the report of the Shropshire and Wrekin Fire and Rescue Authority. I'm going to invite the Chair, Councillor David Minery, to present the report and move that it be received and agreed.
More haste, less speed, Chair. Thank you very much. I will not delay things. I know you're anxious to go to a break, so I will now formally move that the report be received and noted. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Pardee, did you want to comment on the report?
I want to ask a question. That's simple, isn't
Yeah.
it?
You're welcome. You're welcome.
At a recent meeting of the Settlement and Asylum Seekers, I asked the question why, when a service uses a formula to determine the maximum number of guests that can be safely accommodated in a hotel, can that maximum number of guests be ignored and therefore allowing dangerous numbers of people to be posted in hotels, in this particular case in the Isle? I did not receive a satisfactory answer from the fire service representative. In fact, we couldn't answer. So
I'm asking, how can overcrowding be allowed? Who makes that decision to overpopulate hotels? And does an asylum seeker's life have less value than the rest of us?
I would imagine that's a question for the Fire Authority. Are you going to take that back, or?
I'll take that back. It's I want it highlighted in this, right, that people are put at risk.
Okay.
Yes, I do appreciate the question. I thank Councillor Pardee for it. I don't have the answer to that in my head, Chair. I'll have to get back to you.
All right. Thank you. You happy with that, Kevin? All right, brilliant. And just item 15, then we will break for lunch. It's the exclusion of the public and press. It does mean that
Excuse me,
reach this point. Sorry?
Would I be able to speak on this item before we exclude the press and public?
What, exclusion of the?
Yeah.
What? Tim? I mean,
because you don't want to exclude the press or public. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the least to vote on.
Well, I only wish to
just vote against it.
But, well, I can, but it's a bit silly to vote against it, having not explained a rationale to.
Well, let me do my bit first, and then I'll bring you in. All right. So I move that in accordance with the provisions of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act of 1972 and paragraph 10.43 of the Council's access to information procedure rules, the public and press be excluded for consideration of the remaining business. Is that seconded? Okay. So obviously you are not sure about why. I will allow you to ask your question. Try and do it briefly though, because I know
we all want to get lunch. I entirely understand the reasons why the single homelessness accommodation programme update is exempt. However, there were public questions put in by residents who are impacted by the scheme, which weren't accepted today because they were over the 6-question limit. And there are some strained relationships with the community in the areas which will be impacted due to a perceived lack of proper communications and a perceived lack of transparency. And so I'm fairly unhappy that we haven't found some way to debate parts of the exempt item in public, and I'm not particularly comfortable putting my name behind that, though I do understand how that has come about. I think there was a way of avoiding it which would have improved relations within the scheme.
Chairman.
Roger.
In the past, Chairman, where there have been occasions where communities have been affected by exempt motions, there have been 2 reports come to council. One report dealing with the community concerns, if there are any, and if there is any exempt information there which is detrimental to the public knowing, or we are unable to share that with them, that can be a second report which can come to council. It is disappointing that these go straight into the exempt session, so the public and residents and voters are not able to access them, and councillors are not able to talk about them.
Right. Okay, Roger. Does anybody have any information as to why Dean? I think there is a reason that it's in private session, which I'm sure you will understand, and it will be given to you now, and then we will go to the vote.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, as it's my report, I will just briefly outline the reason that it's in private session is because it's effectively business plan. It includes commercially confidential information around budgets. It would not be appropriate for that to be in the public domain. I refute the notion that there's been no or inadequate consultation, as there's been engagement with the community for over 2 years about the use of this site, and there's been frequent and good dialogue with the local member on the site that you're referring to. That is not the only site covered in this report, and it is simply an interim report on that location, but I won't go into any more detail than that. There will be planning application coming forward, which is the opportunity on which the main part of engagement and dialogue between the community and the local authority can take place, as is right and proper. But I stand by the decision to hold this in exempt session due to the commercial sensitivity of figures in the report.
Okay, there we go. So all those in favour of excluding the public and press, please show. Any against? Abstentions? 5 abstentions. Okay, so you can now cut the live feed, and at this point we will go and take some sustenance, and then we will conclude the business, and I will be starting promptly at 1 o'clock, if that's all right with everybody.